What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another vlog. Today's video is going to be a Q&A. I haven't done one of these in a little while, and so I figured it would be fun to just catch up with you guys and chat. I actually meant to film this a couple months ago, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm answering these questions a little late, but better late than never. We're also gonna do a slightly different camera placement for this Q&A because the sun is just actually, of course, just as I'm saying that, the sun is moving up. Basically what's happening, and I'm sure some of you guys will notice this in your own buildings, but because the days are getting shorter, the sun placement is different, and so in the mornings the sun reflects on the building across from me and just comes straight in. But it might, see, of course, now that I'm telling you guys this, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I always say that I'm gonna do these videos more and do like a Q&A per month because I just feel like, one, it's more personal. I feel like it's one-on-one because we're just sitting here and talking, and you guys always leave me such good comments after Q&A, but they take so much time and energy, and I also feel like sometimes the questions get a little repetitive, especially on the modeling side. But I kind of wanted to get your opinion on this. If you guys want to see more Q&As or more just sitting down, talking videos, let me know your thoughts. Without further ado, let's get into the questions. Most of these are from Instagram because I always just do a little question box in my stories. So if you guys don't follow me on Instagram and you want to be involved in the next Q&A, you should definitely follow me on there. But I also have one or two questions that were left under my YouTube that I thought were interesting, so I'm gonna include those as well. Okay, first question is, New York is as expensive as London, so how do you save money in a city where even breathing costs money? I can relate to this because New York is just very expensive. It really does feel like going out of your apartment is spending money in New York. I don't know why or how, but it's just so easy to spend like $100 and not even think about what you just spent it on, you know? I think the biggest ways you save money in a city like New York is to, one, be mindful of your transportation. Ubers are very expensive, and so if you can walk somewhere, you can take the train. Like, I suggest doing that. For me, the only times that I take Ubers is if I'm going to the airport or if it's nighttime. I don't know. Safety to me is very important, and so after a certain time at night, I do not take the subway by myself. Or if I'm going to dinner and I maybe want to wear a certain outfit or I want to dress a certain way, I will take an Uber instead of taking the train. Obviously, I know that that's a luxury and not everybody can afford to do that, but those are kind of my rules when it comes to taking Ubers. I do not just take them everywhere or take them during the day when I don't need to. We're having a real New York City video experience today with all the noises. I think there might have been an accident downstairs or like down on the street actually, because the sirens just kept coming and coming and coming, and now there's fighter planes. I think what it comes down to is when you live in a city like New York or a city like London, you end up paying more money for basic conveniences and luxuries. And so if you're trying to save money, you have to sacrifice one of those basic conveniences and luxuries in order to save. My living space is very important, and also the area that I live in is important because I want to feel safe and I want to feel at home. I spend a lot of time in my apartment. I edit my videos here. I do a lot of work from home. And so having a space that feels nice and comfortable and homey is very important. And so I choose to spend more money on my rent and like the specific area that I live in for those reasons. But then I don't spend a lot of money on food. I don't spend a lot of money on delivery. I don't spend a lot of money on Ubers or like clothes, designer stuff, like those kind of things. And that's, I guess, kind of the sacrifice that I've made. Other people might do the exact opposite, where they say, you know, when I want to have as much spending money as possible, let me just find a really affordable rent in a less convenient location so that I can spend more money on clothes, or I can eat out more, I can just have more disposable money. And so I think that's just what it comes down to, is you have to choose what kind of experience you want to have, unless obviously you have the means to do both. Is modeling on the side realistic as an actor, or would it need to be full-time? These questions are always hard because I feel like there's always an exception and there's always a way that it works out for certain people. In general, I don't think that you can really truly be successful as a part-time model. I think especially the first few years you have to put in 100% of your time because so many things come up last minute and you just want to be available for those opportunities. And this is just my opinion and my experience with the people that I know. I think the only way to really have a successful part-time modeling career is if you've already had a long career for years and years and years and you're kind of transitioning into something new. Because in that case, like if you're, if you've already been working for 10, 12 years as a model, you're basically just taking on less work and you already have that in-stream of clients. So it's not an issue to find those modeling jobs. You just take on less because you're putting your energy elsewhere. Whereas if you are a new model just starting out, you don't have those clients yet. And so the chances that you're going to bring in a lot of money and like successfully model as a part-time job is slim. And then on top of that, if you don't have the time to get to know the clients and dedicate your time to castings and go-sees and things like that, then you end up just having less of a chance. I also think it depends on the kind of modeling that you're doing, because the type of modeling that I do, like photo shoots and fashion and commercial modeling, those are full days. Like I'm working from 8 to 6 or I'm working from 9 to 5, whereas fit modeling, for example, those jobs are usually only a few hours at a time. And so if you were to do more of that modeling, then the part-time thing would make more sense. It just kind of depends on where in the industry you're working. Okay, are modeling trips always hectic? ? Have you gone to any placements? So first of all, yeah, I have done a couple placements. I went to Tokyo, I also went to Milan, and then New York was also originally a placement. I just ended up moving here. I think placements are pretty much always stressful in the beginning because most of the time you're going somewhere that you've never been before. You're working with people who you don't know, and so you're having to get to know a new agency and a new booker. And then on top of that, you're also most of the time dealing with a new environment, new people, new culture, and a new language, which is also, can cause some stress in terms of communication. And so I would say the first month of any placement is just kind of hectic and stressful because you're just dealing with all these new elements and you're trying to work in a new market. Tokyo was just a huge culture shock for me because I was so young. I'd also never worked by myself in a different country before, let alone like halfway across the world. And so the biggest challenge for me there was just the cultural differences in the work ethic. The work ethic was very different. And then Milan was a different type of stress because I just felt like it was not my market. I'm a very, commercial girl next door type of model. And so that just didn't really fit in the Milan market, at least at the time, which is also probably why I haven't gone back. And so I didn't necessarily do very well in terms of work. I wasn't really making money. And I also did not really connect with my agency there, I'll be honest. That was kind of the stressful aspect in Milan. And then in New York, I think the most stressful part of New York was just the living situation, because I lived in, actually, New York came before Milan, so I didn't really have an experience in a model apartment because in Tokyo I was staying in a hotel and I had my own room, so the living situation there was great. And then I came to New York, and I'm not going to go into this because I have a whole video on it. If you guys want to watch it, I'll link it in the cards. But in New York, the living situation was so intense and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And so there's always pros and cons to each city that you go to. Like I said, in Tokyo, my living situation was amazing and I had my own hotel room and it was so, luxurious. But then I couldn't really connect with anyone there because of the language barrier and the cultural differences. And then Milan I had the social aspect down, but my work wasn't really going anywhere. And then New York, you know, I had such a great connection with my agency, and I loved just being here in the city. But then I would come home to like a crazy model apartment situation. So yeah, with all that said, there's always going to be pros and cons to any city that you go to. You just have to be patient with yourself and give yourself time to acclimate to the city, to the people, to whatever situation you're walking into. But if there's anything that I've learned through modeling, is that we are so adaptable. Like we just, as humans, are so adaptable to our environment, and if you just give yourself the time and patience, you will start to feel at home in that new city, and you'll make the best out of it. Obviously, I want to be honest with you guys, especially if you are a new model that's going into these experiences. I always want to be honest, but don't let the unknown or potentially uncomfortable situations stop you from going there and exploring it, because these placements are the times when I actually learned the most. Not just about modeling in my career, but also about myself. Okay, so I probably should have included this after the first question, but I'll just answer it now. But this person suggested I make a video on how I manage my finances living in the city, and I just figured it would be better to answer this in a Q&A and just give you guys an idea of how to do that. So she asks, I'm curious to know how you manage your finances living in the city, if you save a lot of money or you have a lot of expenses, how it works for you. So for me, it works a little bit differently because I'm not on salary and I don't have the same income every month or even the same income every year. And so I have to be extra careful in terms of my spending and managing my finances, just because I don't know what is gonna happen, you know? Obviously I have some certainty that I'm going to be working, but yeah, you just never know what's gonna happen. And so with that, I always kind of lean more to the careful side, because I just never want to be in a position where I have to pull from my savings or have to pull from my investments in order to afford my lifestyle. And so even if I'm having a really successful year or successful time period, I don't change my lifestyle to match that, because you just don't know if it's going to be like that forever. Obviously, there's certain times that I'll, you know, go on a really nice trip, or I'll buy myself something really nice. Or this year, for example, I upgraded my living situation, but that's something that was carefully thought out and it was saved for. And I think I talked about this in my vlogs leading up to the move. Like, that's something that I planned for and saved for months, because I knew that not only was I going to be paying, you know, double the amount in rent, I was also going to be buying all this new furniture and like all this other stuff. And so those things are always thought out a little bit more than maybe someone who has a consistent salary or consistent income every month or every 2 weeks. In terms of whether I save a lot of money or whether I have a lot of expenses, it's both. I try and save as much money as I can. I always prioritize putting X amount of money into my investment accounts, which is kind of equivalent to a 401k. I don't get a 401k because I'm technically self-employed. And then I also put money into savings, but I also have a lot of expenses, you know? It's not cheap living here, which I've kind of touched on in the first question. It's not cheap. And I also have to do things to maintain the way that I look, such as working out, which workout classes are expensive, but then again, I'm also lucky in the sense that I get to write off certain things as work-related expenses, which other professions can't necessarily do. Okay, speaking of workout classes, are Pilates classes worth the money, or will at-home workouts do the job? I think this just depends on who you are as a person. I have one of my really close friends who swears by at-home workouts, and she loves them. She does them all the time, and that's what works for her. I've realized that I need someone who's gonna push me. I have a gym in my building that I use like once or twice a week, but it just doesn't excite me and it doesn't motivate me to work out. I'm really good at pushing myself in certain areas, but working out just isn't one of them. And so knowing that about myself, I choose to spend money on these classes. And I think they're worth it because they're really hard. They're gonna push me much harder than I would myself. And for me also, it's like part of my career. It's just something that I have to do. And so that's another reason on top of it why I justify paying the price. But like if you're someone that enjoys working out from home and is able to push themselves to that level and to really, you know, feel the burn, see the results, whatever your goal is, then I would say stick with that. What are your thoughts on the pressure that women have to be married / have kids by a certain age? I mean, did you guys hear that? I don't think women should be pressured to do anything. I don't think anybody should be pressured to do anything. I feel like with the way we measure success in our society today is really strange. It's like you're only successful if you have a relationship, and then you're only successful if you get engaged, and then you're only successful if you have a big wedding, and then you're only successful if you have a kid, and then you have another one, and then it's like that is the only marker of success in life, which is so untrue. And I don't know, I just think it puts this insane amount of pressure on people just to do things that society thinks is right, or just to fit in with everyone else. Yeah, it's funny. My friends and I talk about this a lot because we're kind of in the, not me personally, but my friends who are a couple years older, I think that they're feeling that pressure sometimes, or they're kind of in that bracket where all of these big life changes are happening. And sometimes it just feels like everyone's competing with each other to, you know, have a better proposal, and then have a better wedding, and then have a baby first, and who has the second kid. And it's just like, everybody just needs to relax and mind their own business and stop telling other people how to live their lives. And I think that as long as you're not hurting other people, obviously this applies to certain things. This does not apply to certain racial beliefs or political beliefs or anything like that. Like there are certain things that are just not done. But when it comes to telling someone when to have a kid, telling someone when they should get married, or how they should get, like, let people live their lives. I feel like I've just gone off topic, but I don't think there should be any pressure to have kids or to have a family, or there should be any sort of timeline. You need to do what you feel comfortable with. And that's all that matters. How to stay optimistic when things aren't going your way. For example, relationships and work. Okay, this is really annoying, but I'm gonna share something that I've learned over the last few years and just, you know, through life and work in general, is that sometimes the things we think are meant for us and good for us are actually not. This is like a very spiritual way of thinking about it, and I know not everybody's gonna think about it this way, but in work, but definitely in relationships, whenever something's been taken away from me, or whenever someone has left my life, it's because they just weren't meant to be there. And sometimes in that moment, actually most times in that moment, you don't really understand why, or you don't see it because you're emotionally involved, or you're attached, or whatever. But then over time, you usually end up realizing that they weren't really a right fit for you, or something much better was gonna come along eventually. And so whenever a relationship doesn't work out, or whenever I don't get a certain job at work, I just always try and remember that there's something better coming, and try and just detach myself from the plans that I had for myself. Because sometimes, like, I don't know, sometimes we don't have the best judgments for our lives, especially when our emotions are involved. And so you kind of just have to surrender. Like, you just have to surrender to it, and the sooner you do that, the faster new things will come into your life. So yeah, I know that's kind of an annoying answer, but that's kind of how I've learned to deal with that kind of stuff. And just also deal with setbacks. You know, setbacks happen for a reason. It's either because you're moving on to something new, or because you have to realize something, which then allows you to move on to something better. Okay, this is probably gonna be my last question because my battery is gonna die again. Any specific goals or intentions for the new year, YouTube or work related? This is always the time of year where I start to think about what I've done this year, and I think it's also because my birthday and the end of the year are very close to each other, and so the timing is kind of nice because I started a new work year, and then I also started a new birth year. To be honest, I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do with my channel and how I feel about my content at the moment. I don't know if I have time to go into this in this video. I might have to just dedicate another little chatty vlog to this or something, but I want to say about a month ago, I started feeling a lot of pressure surrounding the kind of videos that I'm making and just my channel in general. And it wasn't really from anybody but myself. But I don't know, I feel like anybody who's kind of on social media and in this industry can relate to that. You put a lot of pressure on yourself in terms of numbers and how much you're growing, and you know, how many views you're getting, how many subscribers you have, blah blah blah. And so I was kind of comparing myself to other creators out there who do have a lot of numbers and are getting a lot of views, and it's really hard to talk about this stuff and still be politically correct, or I guess not in one way or another throw shade at other creators or other people. But I think it's time for me to just be honest and speak my mind, because I know that there's other people who have to be feeling the same way. But in the YouTube space and in social media in general, there's so much pressure to grow, first of all, but also to stay relevant. And I feel like on YouTube, the biggest trend right now is to just show a lot of stuff and show a lot of clothes and work with very specific brands. And so I want to say about a month or so ago, I was kind of a little bit down on myself, because I, first of all, don't have necessarily the subscriber count that those other girls have, or the view count that those other girls have. But then I watch those videos and I am bored. Personally, I'm bored. I don't know. I don't want to get into that too much, because I don't want to shame other people for what they're doing. If that's working for you, that's great. The problem that I was having is that I started thinking to myself that that's the kind of stuff that I need to be doing in order to grow, in order to be successful. And so for a few days, I was thinking to myself like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be buying this, I should be showing this. And then a few days later, I woke up and I was just like, this is not me. This is not what I want to be doing. This is not what I want to be known for. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that there's so much pressure to do a certain type of thing and to kind of stay in this bubble and do trendy things and be a trendy person and blah, blah, blah. And the more I try and do that, the less authentic it feels. And so something that I've realized this year is that I want to be very selective about what I show, who I work with, and just stick to making videos that are true to myself, rather than changing my content or changing my niche in order to grow. I just don't like what's going on the internet. I'm gonna be straight up. This whole like influencer and always constantly promoting stuff and promoting people to buy things and promoting this like unsustainable lifestyle is just not it for me, and I don't want to be another person that's contributing to that. That's just what it comes down to. It doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like who I am at my core. And I spoke to my boyfriend about this. I spoke to my dad about this, and I was just like very frustrated about it, because obviously YouTube is a business and I do partnerships, which I love working with the brands that I've worked with thus far. And I know that the right companies will continue to support me and want to work with me. But, you know, I was running it by them. I was like, am I making a bad business decision by moving away from all of this and like potentially, you know, moving away from money? And the conclusion is just that I need to film stuff that fulfills me and film videos that I'm proud of, and continue to just bring that good energy into the world through my videos. I want to influence positive things, and so that's going to be my focus for 2023. I want to do lots of vlogs in the city. I want to continue, you know, sharing about health and wellness, like my workouts, what I eat. I also want to share more about the things that I'm doing to educate myself and learn, and travel. I want to do more travel vlogs. I don't know, just things that are more fun and things that are have more substance than just like buying shit all the time, you know what I mean? So that's where my mind is at right now. Obviously share more with you as time goes on and as we kind of move into next year. I haven't decided if I'm gonna vlog over the holiday season. I'm probably not going to. but I'll let you guys know that later on. I am gonna close off the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. If you have any more questions, you can leave them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Mwah!